Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Access Comics Channel, where we talk about all things that are pertaining to comic books and entertainment. I'm your host, Corey Banks, and to give you a little brief overview about myself, and for many of you who do know me, and for many of you who don't know me or are about to find out, I am a huge comic book fan. I've always enjoyed superheroes. I first and foremost do acknowledge that they're not actually of this world and real. However, I really do enjoy superheroes. Superman was the first ever superhero I ever was into, I ever known, as many of us have. He's the definitive comic book superhero. Batman was the second one I was into. I really became a huge fan of the Batman and many of the DC Comics characters. I love DC and Marvel. I admit I love DC just a little bit more. I think it goes back to like Stan Lee said. Stan Lee had actually done some work at DC before. He's very well known for Marvel and all the cameos in the movies, but Stan Lee once said he wants both DC and Marvel to do well at the box office, but he wants Marvel to do just a little bit better, and I've always respected that. It's kind of like if you have a child playing sports or participating in some competition, and you acknowledge that the other kids are doing it, you want them to do well, but you want your kid to do just a little bit better, so don't lie, you do. But anyway, I was thinking about some of the things to talk about. It's my first ever time doing this, and I'm enjoying it, and I definitely do plan on coming back and keeping this show going. But I was just thinking, I said, I thought about some wrestling terminology. I watched wrestling for years also, don't watch as much as I used to, but every once in a while I tune in. And something that Paul Heyman once told Steve Austin came to mind. Years ago, I remember reading Stone Cold Steve Austin's book, and he said to Paul, he was in ECW at the time, he said, "You brought me here, but what do I talk about? I don't even know." He said, "Steve, talk about what you're feeling. Talk about what's on your mind and what's in your heart, what you have knowledge of." And we all see where that went, and he became arguably the biggest draw in the history of professional wrestling and a great entertainer. And so I was thinking about, hey, you love comic books, love entertainment, talk about that, go with it. I am not the biggest comic book expert in the world. I'm not the smallest either. I am not a movie critic. I'm a movie fan, just like a lot of you are, and that's okay because I feel like, hey, we the fans, we can voice our opinion. Let's do so appropriately. You may have many things you agree with me on this, what I'm going to be saying today, and many of you may not. That is fine. You can put your opinions at the bottom, no problem with that. Let's just do our best to respect one another, and it's kind of like respectfully disagree. But anyway, what I want to talk about today is the DC Extended Universe, which of course is the DC Cinematic Universe. And we're going to start off talking about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, of course, that is kind of becoming an old subject now because everybody's been talking about over the month how they feel about the movie. For me, I'm going to talk about, of course, I'm going to tell you if I like the movie or not, but I'm not going to be to the point where I'm bashing the movie or trying to convince you to love the movie either. That's not what I'm going to do. Like I said, keep in mind I'm a huge DC Comics fan, but I'm going to be honest to the best of my opinion of how I feel about the movie. And the DC Cinematic Universe has actually been around for a long time, but this is the first time they're going to have a shared universe in live action. Something I've been very excited about for a long time. 2013, I went to see Man of Steel. I really enjoyed Man of Steel. It's in my collection. Every once in a while I watch it. I really still enjoy that film. It was kind of a different take on Superman. Something I feel that was definitely needed. And it's a controversial movie, but not as controversial as Batman v Superman. But with Man of Steel, I really like the job they did with that to the point of where it is most certainly touching up in certain realms of Superman in the comic book. I know there are some things some people feel like they weren't Superman, but if that's your opinion, you got a right to your opinion. But I don't want to dwell on Man of Steel. This is mainly about Batman v Superman. With Batman v Superman, I feel like, I want to talk about the opening of the movie. And before I go into this, for anybody who has not seen Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and you still plan to see it, you may want to skip this. Watch this channel later. Once you have seen it, and then you come back and watch it. Then if you're a fan who doesn't care about your stuff being ruined and spoiled, then feel free to watch. It's for you then. But for many of us who have seen it, the opener to me, I like the opening of the movie. It was true when I saw what was going to be. I knew the Wayne story was going to be told in it. We saw it in the movie trailers, so I kind of knew that. But It's been told over time and time again, but for some reason I never get tired of seeing and hearing about that story. Whether it's in the comics, whether it's in animation, the video games, or the movies. Because it's told in a different way at times. But this time it was very told in depth and it was done beautiful. Zack Snyder, well, that's the thing about Zack Snyder, he can shoot shots like that very well. And it was pretty cool. It was played by two Walking Dead actors, but it was more in depth of showing how cinematically it was shot. But honestly, if I was going to sacrifice some scene in this movie, that may have been one of them. It was to the point of that would have been something like an alternate opening on the Blu-ray DVD movie, but it was in there, so it was fine. But then we go to the opening scene in Metropolis, when Bruce Wayne was coming down, and the Wayne Enterprises helicopter. That was a great scene. I like the fact that he kind of even stepped off before it had landed, and that's Bruce Wayne. He went into action and everything, and he really went at it. There were some very scenes that were very touching. Of course, like when he helped Scoop McNairy's character out and helped the little girl. It was very touching. And this is where some people kind of forget things. They say, well, why is Batman so mad? Why is he so angry? Keep in mind the events like I'm just talking about now. That's why he is. He had people in his company lose their life, such as Jack. Now, some people may say, well, Jack should have got out of the building, but at the same time, Jack was making sure everybody else had got out of the building too. He was a leadership type guy, and I do admire that about him. That's why he said the prayer, to God before, he left this earth. Those are the things that Bruce was mad about. Now, am I saying it gave Batman a right to go out and do some of the things he was saying? No, not really, but that's what he was mad about. And now, but one of the things that really captured my attention about when the opener was, after Bruce Wayne narrated stuff about his life, it had the title, I may get this kind of wrong, about, and then came the Superman. I love when that came from the screen. That took me back to the old movies of Invasions of the Body Snatchers, War of the Worlds, just to the point, the Superman. It was kind of intimidating, and this is the funny thing about moving forward in the DC Extended Universe. I actually want that to be the name of the next Superman movie, solo movie, The Superman. I kind of doubt if they're going to do that because, Batman's next movie is called The Batman, which is very appropriate because that was Batman's original name, The Batman, with, a hyphen in it. You had the Saturday morning cartoon that came on in the 2000s called The Batman. But I would like for it to be called The Superman next solo movie. But anyway, then moving on in the movie, you have, the desert scene. I think the desert scene was shot well, but there are some issues I do have with it. The guy who got killed off, we come to find out it was Jimmy Olsen. We should have all put it together once we saw the camera, but this is a different take on Jimmy Olsen. I feel like this was a time for them to capitalize on how far Superman has come since Man of Steel. How he can be there a little bit more to save people. And it would have been a classic throwback to Superman scene. You could probably see a Christopher Reeve doing this. But when the guy pointed the gun at Jimmy, and it was kind of like, that would have been a perfect time to do it, because a lot of people didn't know that was Jimmy. People would have been able to see it. I would have loved to see that gun just get melted right in the guy's hand. The guy would have pulled his hand back, and you would have known that was Superman. He has arrived. And keep in mind, this is the first time we see him cinematically in 3 years. That would have been perfect. But, they didn't do that. And, they killed Jimmy off. And then, with Superman landing in the room, and I feel like it was a great shot. But one of the things that makes Superman so great is that he is a superhero who's going to do the right thing. And I think that's why I would have loved to see the gun get melted in the guy's hand. He would have been just a nick of time because you'd be like, no one else probably could have done that. There are only a few. Batman is one of them. Batman probably came out somewhere with a batarang. You never know. But it's just the point. Superman is so well known for that. Moving along in the movie, if I want to start talking about some of the scenes that I would have cut out. I like the fact that, all right, when it went from that scene, they did go from Clark arriving, Lois arriving, and Clark, the bathtub scene. Personally, I think that's something that could have been just left for Blu-ray, DVD, extra extended scenes or whatever. I would have rather for them had gone from that scene then to when the officers arrived at the building where the Batman was interrogating guy, and people was like, the devil saved us, and they're like, well, that sounds funny, but what they were talking about, and it was awesome to see Batman on that wall. It was creepy, it was terrifying. I remember I was in the theater, people went nuts when they saw that, because now the first time they seen Ben Affleck in that bat suit cinematically. And I was a fanboy at heart. I loved it. I said, that's how I know how Batman to be terrifying. That's one of the things I always enjoyed about Christian Bale's Batman, to the point of how he was lurking. And, he'll just come from, you'll look in the back and you'll see him back there, because that's how Batman is. He was the best lurking in the shadows. So, moving on from that, you start talking about some other things. I'm not going to really break down the whole movie, but I'm going to talk about certain things. Let's go ahead and move on to Lex Luthor. That's a whole different ballpark. Lex Luthor. I think Jesse Eisenberg, for one, is a brilliant actor. I would not take that away from Jesse Eisenberg on any day. And I don't think it's fair to say he's not. But if he's not, that's your opinion. I just think he's a brilliant actor. Now, the way he played Lex Luthor, that is not really the way I want to see Lex played. I think it was brilliantly the way he did it and executed it. I didn't necessarily look at him like some people say he's a fake Riddler or wannabe Riddler combined with a Joker. He did it differently, but keep in mind it's also Lex Luthor's son. But I do think that Bryan Cranston would have been perfect for this role, and from my understanding, Zack Snyder did meet with him, but once he met with him, he decided to go with Jesse Eisenberg, so they wanted to go with someone younger. But my vision of Lex Luthor is always the one from Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and also from the Batman. He gets on the Batman cartoon, some of the DC animated cartoons that Clancy Brown voiced. That Lex Luthor was always intimidating to me. A sharp businessman, mad scientist, all that. He was kind of an evil version of Batman. He was always a step ahead. And that's something that I always enjoyed about that version of Lex. But it is what it is. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to continue and bring Jesse Eisenberg back. And he's still going to play Lex that way, or is he going to be a little bit more of more darker? I would actually like to see him go in a tone of a dark type of how he was on the movie Social Network. Just be a little bit darker. We did get the bald head from him at the end, so that was pretty cool. Excuse me. But now, as we move forward in the movie, I want to talk about Diana, Wonder Woman. I honestly think she was done very well in the movie. I think, in a way, served her purpose from the length of time she was in the movie, because the movie isn't really all about Wonder Woman. It's about Batman and Superman. That's what it's supposed to be. It was great how she was kind of like a drifter in the movie. It was kind of similar, even though Anne Hathaway's Catwoman had more time in The Dark Knight Rises. It was kind of like that. But Wonder Woman, I like how she was so mysterious. And I think Gal Gadot did an actually good job. A lot of people wasn't really giving her a chance there. Well, she's not an actress. Of course, I know she's not a Julia Roberts. I know she's not a Kate Beckinsale or anyone. But give her a start. And I think she did fairly well, because the fight scenes were awesome what she did. She really brought it. Especially when she got knocked back and smiled and got her weapon, went back at it. That was phenomenal. I loved that. I was in the theater. A lot of people went nuts when they saw that. But there was a couple of things I would have switched. Like, for example, it was pretty cool to see how she got the device before Bruce. But I would have had Bruce really break into that foul. He did, but I would have had shown him. He would have won discovering what these metahumans have, which you're going to come to find out to be the Justice League. There are some ways I would have done that differently, but I want to go ahead and move around some. And I know that feel like sort of what the movie had done itself, because the movie was kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's understandable in comic book movies, but not as much as it was in this one. So, the way the movie bounced around, it was just a little bit too much. But let's go back to Scoot McNairy's character. He's one of the people who got blew up in the building when Superman was very saddened by that and very angry with himself. He said he should have saw it. Now, diehard comic book fans, hear me out before you say this. You know that John Corbin is Metallo. But I think this would have been a perfect time to make Scuba Nair's character Metallo. Think about how angry he was with Superman. We know, I feel like you can change some characters in a way. We've seen different people taking the mantle of Clayface. We've seen different people taking the mantle of different things. They could have actually made this guy Metallo as kind of like a side villain. He could have been a threat or whatever, and Lex could have helped with that. Think about Lex was coming in anyway. I think that would have been more of an executable Lex Luthor move. That would have been very fascinating for them to do. But they didn't do that. I kind of feel like it was kind of a waste of a role for him. And then I also noticed in the scene, if I'm not mistaken, Mercy got blew up. I feel like they could have explored Mercy's character more, not necessarily in this movie. That didn't have to happen, but later, when bringing Lex back. That was one of the many things I was enjoyed about Lex and Mercy's relationship. In Superman animated series and Justice League and stuff like that, when they brought back from the guest star episodes. Now, when it comes to Jeremy Irons as Alfred, I have no complaints whatsoever. Jeremy Irons is one of the greatest actors of all time. This guy can act in any role he ever does. I enjoyed him in the Die Hard movie. I think it was the third one when he played in that. But him playing Alfred was perfect. And he made many great points when it came to that. And I definitely hope he comes back to play Alfred and more, especially in the solo Batman movies that's coming up. I think he did a fascinating job because he was kind of a different take on Alfred. And I feel like that's something that Bruce really needed in his life. Now I want to go talking about, the villain, Doomsday. Here's the thing about that is, why I have always wanted to see Doomsday in a sense cinematically, I didn't want to see him right now. I didn't really have a complete problem with Doomsday being in the movie. It's just to the point where I feel like really, if that's really Doomsday, Doomsday would have done more of the damage that was done in Man of Steel than the damage he done there. Doomsday is a very physically imposing, powerful character. And actually, he's an intelligent character also. Doomsday is no dumb brute. It's just like sometimes people seem to forget Bane. Bane is no dumb brute. They proved that in The Dark Knight Rises. But, I feel like, them using Doomsday, that could have been a villain saved for later. I really feel. A good friend of mine had a good idea where they should have used Calabac. And I actually think that's a good idea also. The reason why I'm thinking that's a good idea is this. That would have been a good tie-in also with Darkseid. Because I think the scene, the Nightmare Batman scene, was shot brilliantly. Those parademons were freaky. It was creepy seeing Batman and Superman like that in that estate. The Omega symbol in the ground, Darkseid symbol of Apocalypse, that was phenomenally shot. I think that Lex, it could have been someone who would have came out later, or kind of like, who is this guy throughout the movie? It could have been revealed as Calabac. Imagine Calabac taking on Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And he would have been talkative. We don't know Calabac always got some of the cunning lines, of a movie villain. That would have been a good tie-in too. Now, here's my take. A good friend of mine, like I said, mentioned that, and that was a very good thing. I had an idea of a villain they should have used. I actually think they should have used Bizarro. And in a way, some people still look at that like that creature created was Bizarro in a sense, Kryptonian DNA. But I would have used Bizarro the same way Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and all of them did back in Superman animated series. If you go back and look at the 90s series of Superman animated series, you can probably look it up on YouTube. You got the DVD collection. Lex cloned Bizarro, if I'm not mistaken, from Kryptonian DNA. When he was first created, he came out looking exactly like Superman, sound like Superman. You would have thought Superman's identical twin or a robot. Had on the suit and everything. No backward steps or anything. He was going around saving people and stuff. I would have had it where that would have happened in the movie. He would have first been saving people, but Lex also would have told him when to start killing people. He would have been frying people left and right, heat vision and stuff like that. But what would have happened is Batman, of course, was already upset by what happened through the events of Man of Steel. That would have gave him another reason to start going after Superman. But Superman would have been like, what's going on? Lois is like, he would have been like, Lois, you do believe me, right? I didn't do this to these people and stuff. Lois wants to believe him, but she's kind of having a hard time. It's like, you're seeing in these events, but Superman is like, that is not me. But then there would have been a huge fight scene. Finally, Superman meets Bizarro. They wouldn't even have called him a Zorro. He would look just like Superman. Batman would have been telling them. So then next thing you know, Superman and Bizarro would have been fighting. They kind of got like that in the cartoon. And after some brutal damage, you would have started noticing some changes with Bizarro's face. And what would have happened is Batman would have been there, and he would have looked. It was kind of like a side comedy moment to us. Really? Seriously? You know, it's one of those things where two guys who look alike, he doesn't know which one to shoot. But being Batman's the world's greatest detective, of course, he figures something out. He has like the gun how he had like with the Kryptonite in the movie, and he takes a chance. The real Superman goes down because of him, but the other Bizarro, when he goes down and gets back up, he's not really affected like Superman is, but his face is chiseled. And then he gets up and starts talking in reverse about, you know, what happened to me, and you know how Bizarro talks and stuff, and he would have flew away. And Batman would have reached his hand out to Superman, said sorry, but I had to give it a chance and whatever. Now before this, they would have already gotten into their fight of the Dark Knight Returns. You may didn't even have to have that in the movie, but they would have gotten all that, and Superman would have been like, "What was that thing?" And Batman could have said, "Like some bizarre version of you." And Superman would have been like, "You know, I told you I wasn't guilty of any of that stuff or whatever." And Batman said, "Now I'm starting to see that." Now here's the thing about the Martha thing. I really didn't have a problem with Martha. You know, I would have made it more of like, you know, they, you know, have my mom if they were going to do that scene. Later, Batman would find out her name was Martha or something like that. But I've always wanted them to dress. They had the same mothers had the same name because I never did. Excuse me. I never known them to before this. But then I think about other characters whose parents got the same name. If I'm not mistaken, Bruce Wayne and Hal Jordan's fathers have the same name, Thomas Wayne and Thomas Jordan. Well, that's a different subject. But I would have liked that. But the next time, Bizarro would have flown back to Lex, and Lex would have been furious. So he was just like this, you know, he's going to let Bizarro look like he did. Next time we would see Bizarro, he would look wicked, spike-looking hair, chiseled face. I'm talking about the type of chiseled face, like it was a Smallville time he gets started there. His face changed. But the next time we would have saw Bizarro in the battle, we would have seen the reverse S on him. And his suit would have been looking very kind of dark, torn up and stuff. That would have been, I think that would have been very fitting. I wanted them to go that route instead of the Doomsday route. I really did. I enjoyed the Doomsday route to a certain extent. I mean, fighting wise, I really enjoyed it. It kind of reminded me of DC Universe Online. I wanted them to go and do, hopefully they get that far in the future, but with the Wonder Woman really doing her thing and everything, that was great. Batman and the warehouse scene when you say Martha, that was perfect to me. Now, the Batmobile scene was driving was great to me also. And all I had to have the Nicholson, the Easter eggs for Jack Nicholson. Now, with Batman killing people, no, I'm not really following the movie in any particular order. I really didn't get too much into that as far as having a problem with it. I keep in mind, being a big Batman fan, in his early days, he actually did kill. But some people made such a big deal out of it, and I can understand why. But if you go back to Michael Keaton's Batman, 1989, he did some killing in that. Batman Returns also. When he grabbed the man's head with his legs and threw him down with a bell. You know, the comic books, Batman would have got him with the thing or whatever. You know, you're talking about a guy in the comic books who killed KGB, I think, by hanging him. The cops are looking for him. Batman said, you won't have to worry about hearing from him anymore. And I'm like, it's very controversial, but I think what they're going to do with this is the trick is this. But I don't want people to get the wrong idea when they're doing this. Keep in mind, Batman told Wonder Woman, we need to find these other people like you. Go back to the first season of Arrow. CW's Arrow, DC Comics, which is still one of my favorite shows. Arrow, Oliver was killing people. He was not messing around. But if I can't remember if it was Felicia, someone told me he can do this without killing, and that's what he started to do. He started to really become that real hero, that superhero that we know as the Green Arrow. I think Batman is going to go through a similar thing. Batman is going to start looking back and being like, hey, Alfred's right. I just become another one of these criminals by doing what they're doing. He's going to look back at the days when he did things more with finesse. And it's to that point where, keep in mind, this is older Batman. They have a prequel comic book to Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, where these two crooks see Batman, and the younger criminal is amazed when he sees him, and the older criminal like, yeah, I've seen him numerous times, and he tells the young criminal, he said, he's different now. Back in the day, he used to apprehend all of us. He did it with finesse, but now he's breaking people down, breaking bones, crippling, and stuff like that, and that can be pretty cruel. And so, but I think Batman is gonna be reformed in the next movie, maybe like Justice League Part 1. He's also going to be like this, hey Diana, speaking for himself, but him and Diana are really the senior members. He's going to be like this, I got to set an example for these guys if I'm going to be putting this group together. And I think that's one of the ways they can get Batman back on track with the no killing thing, possibly. Sometimes there are going to be casualties. It's like war. There are casualties. Let's keep it real. This is live action. So it is what it is. And then, of course, you got the death of Superman. And don't get me wrong, I know I'm talking about a lot of things right now that I would have changed about the movie. But I want to talk about some of the other things that I liked about the movie also. The death of Superman, that's something they squeezed in there. I did hear some rumors that Superman was going to die in the movie. Some time back. I didn't really think too much of it, but then I started to really think. But honestly, killing them off, I kind of wish they didn't do it, because I feel like this could have been something that was done in another movie. But I look at it like this also. It sets up for a huge comeback in Justice League Part 1. And I definitely want them to bring Superman back in a huge dramatic fashion, because I feel like with Superman, he is... Don't get me wrong, Batman is the most popular superhero. Superman is the most iconic. And I think that Superman, if anybody's knocking the way he was in this movie, it's definitely not Henry Cavill's fault. He was doing what an actor's supposed to do. He did his part. But I think this is set up for a huge comeback for Superman, and rightfully so. That leads me to the director of Zack Snyder. I think Zack Snyder, I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I think he is a brilliant director. I just think that one of his weaknesses is that he's not really a good storyteller. Visually, he is, with action. But, a good storyteller, if you take a look at some people who know how to tell a story, of course, like the great Steven Spielberg, all the way up to Christopher Nolan. You take a look at guys like James Cameron now. Those guys really know how to tell stories. And people have their different things. Some people got their strengths, their weaknesses. But I think to the point of Zack Snyder, it may be time for them to bring on maybe, say, like a co-director, someone who can definitely know how to tell a story, and Zack still do his shots. But it's up in the air what they're going to do with it right now. There's been a lot of news that Zack Snyder may be out, but I say don't believe that until it's actually confirmed. I just want them. My concern is we're going to get the same thing again the next movie, and I don't want that. I want it to be different, but in a better way. I did enjoy Batman the way he was portrayed in the movie. Yeah, they did stretch it with the killing and whatever like that. I enjoyed many of the Superman scenes. I just wish they would have had Superman where he wouldn't have been so hard on himself, because to me he was supposed to come up even more and to show how he has progressed more since Man of Steel. But overall, I liked the movie. I really did, and I'm definitely not gonna, bash the movie or anything like that. Did it have its issues? Yes, it did. But this movie's not for everyone, but for people who are diehard comic book fans or the casual movie going audience, it's like this. We got these guys like behind me playing right now coming up next, Suicide Squad. And that looks like that is going to be a fun action movie. I definitely can't wait to see that come August. And I just think that Warner Brothers, take a cue from Marvel. This is one of the things that Marvel is genius on with their movies. Marvel will put stuff in their movies of characters nobody hardly knows about. They don't go panicking, well, nobody knows who this guy is, this female is, but they got a way of helping people know who they are. Take Baron Von Strucker. A lot of people probably didn't know who Baron Von Strucker was in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. But here's the cool thing what Marvel does. They trust their fans. Somebody in the theater's like, ooh. And some people look around like, well, I'm like that sometimes. Oh, that's such and such. And then the word gets passed along. And who was that guy in the movie? People riding back from the movie. That's such and such. People talking about it at work the next day. People talking about it in school. Talking about it on the internet. It helps that character get known. And that's why I'm like this. Hey, bring some of those other characters in. that people hardly know. This way it helps them become bigger names, or dare I say household names. Like, I really do think Will Smith is going to help Deadshot become a bigger household name. Deadshot is well known. Now, is he Joker well known? No, he's not. But I think he's going to be getting more popular. But I think that's one of the things that Warner Brothers take chances with these characters. You have the world's greatest superheroes, and I enjoyed Batman v Superman. I really did. It does have some rewatchable stuff, watchable stuff, and rewatchable stuff. Now I went back to rewatch the movie. I do that with some movies so I can see what I missed the first time. Sometimes somebody tell me, "Hey, did you see this?" I'm like, "No, I didn't see that." So I go back and rewatch it, and I finally see it. I said, "How did I miss that?" But I do think they're headed in the right direction. Next up for them is Suicide Squad. I think Suicide Squad is going to be something different. I love all of their trailers so far, and they're doing it in a way where they're not giving away too much. I like the fact Batman, he looked incredible in the last Suicide Squad trailer. And next week, I mean not next week, excuse me, next year, Wonder Woman is coming out July 2nd. Next year, and I actually am going to do an episode. Has a lot of Wonder Woman stuff in it, some recommendations to help people get caught up on the Wonder Woman character, because a lot of people know who she is. Everybody knows who Wonder Woman is, but there's a lot of people who don't know her backstory. And this will be a good episode for you to get caught up on that, and I do plan on loading that up soon. And then in November you have Justice League Part 1. I think these movies are going to do very well. It's just to the point I really want them. Of course, I want them to do very well financially, but I want them to do well of when you're seeing it and taking it. That really helps a lot. And that's where I wanted to go with the DC Extended Universe. So here's the deal, everyone. There's much more stuff on the way. DC and Marvel, a lot of these things. Sit back and enjoy it. When I was a kid, we had Superman, we had Batman. But other than that, no other stuff wasn't coming out. If it did, it went straight to VHS and it wasn't really too good to watching. I'm a huge Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice fan. I like the movie. I wish I could give it a 10 out of 10. I'm not going to necessarily do that. I'm going to give it around an 8 out of 10. Some people give it a 7.5 out of 10. I give it an 8 out of 10. I feel like there's more room for improvement, and I think they will improve. And here's the thing: Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice financially has made a lot of money. It still got some money it needs to make back, but it is by no means a flop in the imagination of a Green Lantern or anything like that. It is not a failure such as some of the other movies that have come out in the past. Such as, it does not need to be in that category. It's always going to be a questionable movie, controversial, but it is definitely not a horrible movie. That is definitely taking it too far, I feel like, with people. But people have the right to their own opinion, and that's fine if you want to go that route. But I do look forward to where it's going. I also look forward to where Marvel is continuing to go. I do want to do some videos on those also, because Civil War, those, the TV clips they have, and I've seen it look phenomenal. So it's just like that. But wrapping this up, if you like this video, please subscribe, leave your comments at the bottom, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. My name is Corey Banks, signing off for Access Comics Channel. Peace.